It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. The 2 pink lines shimmered on the plastic stick, a confirmation of the dream Brandon and I had shared for so long. Years of trying, of charting cycles and timed intimacy, had finally led to this moment. I should have known, right then, that the dream was mine alone. What happened next revealed a truth that shattered everything I thought I knew about Brandon, about us. Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah, and I'm here to share my story. It's a story of heartbreak, betrayal, and ultimately, the fierce, protective love of a mother. Before I begin, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please take a moment to comment and tell me where in the world you are. It always amazes me how connected we can be, even across vast distances. Brandon's reaction wasn't the explosion of joy I'd envisioned. It wasn't tears of happiness or a tight celebratory hug. It was muted, a quiet, "That's good," followed by a shrug and a glance at the television screen. I told myself it was shock. He was probably just processing the news. He'd come around. The weeks that followed were filled with appointments, ultrasounds, and the growing, undeniable reality of the life blooming inside me. But, with each passing day, Brandon seemed to withdraw further. He worked longer hours, spent more time with his friends, and his touch, once so frequent and reassuring, became fleeting and distant. We barely spoke, and when we did, it was about logistics, about surface-level things. The deep, intimate conversations we used to have were replaced by strained silences. I tried talking to him. I tried to express my fears, my anxieties, my overwhelming joy.
But he'd just nod, his eyes glazed over, and tell me I was being emotional, that I was just experiencing pregnancy hormones. He dismissed my feelings like they were some minor inconvenience. I started feeling like I was alone in this journey, carrying not just a child but the weight of our crumbling relationship. The first real crack appeared at my parents' anniversary dinner. It was supposed to be a happy occasion, a chance for us to celebrate with family. I was about 12 weeks along, just starting to show, and I'd finally felt comfortable enough to announce the pregnancy. The room buzzed with excitement as I shared the news, everyone showering us with congratulations and well wishes. Everyone except Brandon. He sat silently through the initial flurry, a strange smirk playing on his lips. Then, after a few glasses of wine, he started making comments.
Subtle jabs at first, masked as jokes. He questioned the timing of the pregnancy, made vague allusions to my past, and even dared to suggest that the baby might not be his. My blood ran cold. The room seemed to tilt on its axis. My parents stared at him, their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. My mother's hand tightened on my father's arm. I felt a hot flush creep up my neck, and tears pricked at my eyes. "What are you saying, Brandon?" I managed to choke out, my voice trembling. He shrugged again, that infuriatingly casual gesture that had become his signature move. "Just saying, Sarah, you've always been popular." The implication hung in the air, thick and poisonous. I looked around the table, at my family's stunned faces, and felt a wave of humiliation wash over me. How could he do this? How could he humiliate me like this in front of the people I loved most? That was it.
That was the breaking point. I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "And I'm taking our baby with me." I turned and walked out of the house, leaving Brandon and his cruel words behind. I didn't look back. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. I moved out of our apartment and into a small, cozy cottage on the outskirts of town. I contacted a lawyer and started the process of disentangling our lives. I cut off all contact with Brandon and his family. It was painful, like ripping off a bandage, but I knew it was necessary. I needed to protect myself, and more importantly, I needed to protect my baby. I threw myself into preparing for single motherhood. I read books, attended prenatal classes, and transformed the spare bedroom into a nursery filled with soft colors and hopeful dreams.
My friends and family rallied around me, offering unwavering support and love. My mother came over every day to help me paint the nursery walls a calming shade of lavender. My best friend, Emily, organized a baby shower that filled my heart with warmth and joy. Brandon, meanwhile, remained silent. He didn't call, didn't text, didn't even try to reach out. It was as if I had vanished from his life entirely. Then, about a month later, a package arrived at my doorstep. Inside was a diamond necklace, the kind I'd always admired in the jewelry store window. Attached was a small card, simply signed, Brandon. My first instinct was to throw it away, to burn it. But then I realized what he was doing. This wasn't about love or remorse. It was about appearances. It was about him trying to maintain a facade of normalcy for his family and friends. It was about controlling the narrative. A few days later, another package arrived. This time, it was a designer stroller, the kind celebrities use. Again, a card signed with his name. I felt a surge of anger, a burning resentment that threatened to consume me. He thought he could buy his way back into my life. He thought a few extravagant gifts could erase the pain and humiliation he had inflicted. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I packed up the necklace, the stroller, and all the other gifts he had sent, and drove to his parents' house. I rang the doorbell, and his mother, Carol, answered. Her face was etched with concern, but her eyes held a glimmer of disapproval. "Sarah," she said, her voice tight, "what are you doing here?" "I'm returning these," I said, holding out the packages. "Brandon sent them, but I don't want them. I don't want anything from him." Carol frowned.
Sarah, you need to think about what you're doing. Brandon loves you. He wants to be a part of this baby's life. I shook my head. No, Carol, he doesn't. If he did, he wouldn't have said those things at my parents' anniversary dinner. He wouldn't have treated me like I was nothing. I'm raising this child on my own, and I don't want him or his family involved. Stay away from me. Stay away from my baby. I turned and walked back to my car, leaving Carol standing on the porch, a look of stunned disbelief on her face. The months that followed were challenging, but also incredibly rewarding. I watched my belly grow, felt the first flutters of movement, and marveled at the miracle unfolding within me. I surrounded myself with love and support, and I focused on creating a safe and nurturing environment for my child. Finally, the day arrived. After hours of labor, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. I named her Lily because she was as pure and innocent as a white lily in bloom. Holding her in my arms for the first time, I felt an overwhelming sense of love and responsibility. I knew that I would do anything to protect her, to make her happy, to give her the best possible life. I didn't tell Brandon about Lily's birth. I didn't send him a picture, didn't even acknowledge his existence. He had made his choice, and I had made mine. For the first few months, it was just Lily and me. We formed a bond that was unbreakable, a connection that transcended words. I sang to her, read to her, and held her close, cherishing every moment. She was my everything. Then one afternoon, I received a message from an unknown number. It was a text from one of Brandon's friends, a guy named Mark. I hadn't spoken to Mark since the anniversary dinner. "Sarah, I need to tell you something about Brandon," the text read. "It's important." Intrigued and slightly apprehensive, I agreed to meet him for coffee. When I arrived at the cafe, Mark was already waiting for me. He looked nervous, fidgeting with his hands and avoiding eye contact. "What is it, Mark?" I asked. my voice tight with anticipation. He took a deep breath. Brandon, he's always been afraid of commitment, afraid of being trapped. A few years ago, before you guys were together, he got a girl pregnant. He pressured her into having an abortion. It was a really traumatic experience for him. I think that's why he reacted the way he did when you told him you were pregnant. I stared at Mark, my mind reeling. An abortion? Brandon? It was like a piece of the puzzle had finally fallen into place.
His indifference, his withdrawal, his cruel comments, it all made sense now. He wasn't just afraid of commitment, he was terrified of repeating the past. He saw my pregnancy as a threat, as a loss of control. A wave of anger washed over me, stronger than anything I had felt before. Not just anger at Brandon, but anger at myself for not seeing the signs, for not understanding the depth of his fear. That night, after Lily was asleep, I did something I had been resisting for months. I posted a picture of myself and Lily on social media. It was a simple photo, just me holding her in my arms, both of us smiling. But it was also a declaration of my strength, my happiness, and my unwavering love for my daughter. The response was overwhelming. Friends, family, and even strangers flooded the post with messages of support and admiration.
But one comment stood out. A comment that made my blood run cold. It was from Brandon. "How could you do this, Sarah?" he wrote. "You're deliberately alienating me from my own child. You're making me look like the bad guy." I felt a surge of fury. He still didn't get it. This wasn't about him. It was about Lily. It was about protecting her from his negativity, his fear, and his inability to commit. I didn't reply to his comment. Instead, I decided to take a different approach. I knew that Lily deserved to know her father, even if he wasn't the man I had thought he was. But I also knew that I couldn't trust Brandon to be a positive influence in her life. So, I came up with a plan. When Lily was 6 years old, I contacted Brandon. It had been 6 years since I last spoke to him. 6 years of raising Lily on my own, of navigating the challenges and joys of single motherhood. I told him that I was willing to arrange a brief meeting between him and Lily, but there were conditions. First, the meeting would be silent. No talking, no explanations, no excuses. Just a chance for him to see Lily, to see what he had missed. Second, I would be present the entire time. I wasn't going to leave Lily alone with him, not for a single second. He hesitated at first, but eventually agreed. I think a part of him was curious. A part of him longed to see his daughter. We met at a park near my house. It was a sunny afternoon, the air filled with the sounds of children laughing and birds chirping. Lily was playing on the swings, her long brown hair flowing behind her. She was a vibrant, happy child, full of life and energy. I pointed Brandon out to her. "Lily," I said, "that man over there is your father." She looked at him, her eyes wide with curiosity. Then she walked over to him, her small hand outstretched. He knelt down to meet her, his face etched with a mixture of sadness and longing. They stood there for a few minutes, just looking at each other. Brandon didn't say a word. He just stared at Lily, his eyes filled with tears. Lily, in turn, seemed to be taking him in, studying his face, his features. Then, she reached out and touched his cheek, a gentle, innocent gesture that seemed to break something inside him. He closed his eyes, a single tear escaping and tracing a path down his face. After a few minutes, I took Lily's hand and led her away. As we walked back to the swings, I glanced back at Brandon. He was still kneeling there, his head in his hands, sobbing. That was the last time I saw Brandon. I knew, in that moment, that I had made the right decision. He had seen Lily. He had witnessed her joy, her innocence, her vibrant spirit. He had seen what he had missed, what he had thrown away. and I knew that he would never be a part of our lives. Lily is now 10 years old. She's a smart, kind, and compassionate child. She knows that she has a father, but she doesn't ask about him. She doesn't need him. She has me, and she has the love and support of my family and friends. I often wonder if Brandon thinks about us, if he regrets his choices, if he understands the magnitude of what he lost. But I don't dwell on it. I can't. My focus is on Lily, on creating a future filled with happiness and love. I have no regrets. I made the best decision I could based on the information I had at the time, and I would do it all again in a heartbeat. Some people break families. Others rebuild them from the ashes. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to my channel for more tales of resilience, heartbreak, and the unwavering strength of the human spirit.